we're talking about recession. What are practical things to do to prepare for recession?
You need cash to navigate through a recession and all the opportunities that cash will open for you.
Right. And even as you're saying that, I'm thinking you really need cash all the time. Okay. You need to be positively cash flowing, especially in a recession.
Yeah, so it sounds like, to put it simply, to be ready for a recession, you need cash.
Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast.
We're building a shredder operation in the Atlanta area right as there was a downturn in metal prices, and the shredding operation shreds junk cars, things like that. We're building the world's largest shredder, and we could shred buses and airplane fuselages and all kinds of stuff. And just in like minutes, you're getting pieces of fist-sized pieces of steel that used to be a school bus. Pretty awesome. It's very loud too. So
I could only imagine. And you mentioned that you took on a ton of debt service in order to do so. Doesn't that eat into your cash?
Here's the thing. The plant, I didn't say this last week. Got to save something. We had huge cost overruns. I ended up leveraging everything to the hilt. That was not the plan.
When you say, just so everyone understands, what do you mean when you say cost overruns?
So in other words, we thought, I don't know, I'll make up a number, but we thought it was going to be $1 million to pour all the concrete that was needed, all the concrete pads and everywhere like that. Oh, it was 2 million.
Got it.
It was stuff like that.
You just underestimated every expense.
No, well, it was an engineering issue.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into names and personalities, but there was a couple of culprits. And I just had to navigate that. I do remember this. I remember walking the construction site and go, oh, there are my gold-plated engines. Because the engines we had budgeted for were like, steel. Oh, no, those weren't good enough. We've got to have gold-plated. They weren't really gold-plated, but the price, they might as well have been gold-plated. Everything was, oh, this would be, if we just spend a little bit more on this, we'll get much more life out of it and blah, blah, blah. We ended up leveraging to the hilt to get this thing across the finish line because we had to get it open. All I'm saying there, AJ, is what we did was we were maxed out. We maxed out every possible credit facility we had to get this thing across the finish line.
But that was during the recession, right? Not before it?
No, not before it. It was during, because the downturn occurred right as we had just literally taken on a whole bunch of debt for all the equipment. We had it all shipped in. It was all sitting on the ground, all this kind of stuff. So yeah. And so we're going through the recession as we're building the plant and hoping we come out of this thing with a price upturn. That you've got to get into what kind of debt are we talking about? And the kind of debt we were talking about was long-term. So that, and it was bonds, it was complicated. And then we had, and I won't say anything more complicated than this, but we were using off-balance sheet leases to leverage our position beyond what it was leverageable. So we actually over-leveraged when you considered that.
Oh, wow.
I used every trick in the book.
So all of that doesn't sound like the best position to be in going through a recession, being over leveraged. How does that affect your cash position?
Okay. Well, two things. One is you're right. You don't want to be in an over leveraged position going into a recession. You never want to be in an over leveraged position, to be quite honestly, because you're taking on, your risk just goes through the roof. And so, and then recession is more risk. We didn't have a choice. Listen to last week, you get a little more of the insight on that. We were stuck. And so what we were betting on was that metal prices would start coming back. If we could just get the plant online, we didn't care about profitability. Profitability, we threw it out the window. What we cared about was cash flow. And the only place we were going to get cash was by shredding buses and spitting it out and selling it on the market as fast as we could. And we could shred a lot. It was unbelievable how much we could shred in a day. So we started buying before the plant came online. We started buying raw materials, junk cars, buses, whatever, anything, that had metal in it. We started buying it and getting it ready and staged. So the second that plant came on, we were able to feed that monster, because it was about cash. And that was the fastest way for us to generate cash and cash flow out.
And did you do anything else other than just preparing your revenue or preparing to generate revenue? I mean, you're paying money for these cars and for these buses. So
Right.
are you making up for those expenses somewhere else?
Well, yeah. So this is complicated how we did all of that. So let's kind of step back from, so I did say, right, this isn't the best example of how to get through a recession, but the question that we were kind of dealing with is like, what's the worst scenario? But there are instructive things to do here based on this story. And a couple of those things are, one is you want to maintain positive cash flow. All right. And we did that. And that's how we were able to fund these purchases, because we had positive cash flow. Now, from our other plant, we had another plant. That's how we were doing it. So what you want to do in a recession is you want to have cash, or what's just as good as cash are open credit facilities. What I mean by that is, like, if you have a credit line at the bank, say our talk on debt, you can then look at, paying that down. So if I've got cash and I've got a credit line, get that credit line down. Because two reasons. One, you make virtually nothing on cash, but you're paying higher interest. Typically, you're going to be paying a higher interest rate on the borrowing. So you want to reduce your interest cost, your cost of the loan. And a credit line, guys, is simply just that. It's just I'm borrowing and then I pay it down, and then I'm paying the interest on it. That's called debt service. Fixed notes, you want those to be hopefully long term, and the payments aren't huge to your overall cash flow. They need to be small as a percentage. And if they are big, renegotiate if you can, or you can at least ask, because look, banks don't want you to fail, and they want you to make it. And so, if you've got a 5-year note and the equipment's got a 10-year life, you could probably go back to them and say, hey, look, guys, there's still 10 years left on this equipment. Could you take me out to 7 years, 8 years, and crunch some
And
numbers that way.
being in a recession too, the bank, I'm sure, is having a lot of loan failure across the board. So are they in a more willing position to be willing to renegotiate because they're having a lot of failures elsewhere? Or is that put the opposite pressure in, oh, we're having these failures elsewhere, we need as much money as we can, where they start like penny pinching customers?
Well, so first of all, the answer is, I don't know. It depends on your bank. Okay. But second, it does bring up this, and we don't need to go down this bunny trail too far, but you got to be careful how you present things. You don't want to scare the bank. Yeah, they may not be having failures, but they put like little signals on accounts, like a warning light, this business is got problems. So where you want to be is in a strong cash position and in a low debt position, certainly on short-term debt. Short-term debt would be one. So in other words, think of it this way. Here's another way to think about it, AJ. If your credit cards are all maxed out, you can't charge. And if you need cash, you're having to make pretty big payments just on the minimum payment. You're not bringing your credit card balance down, and you're burning cash. That's the worst possible way to go into a recession. You want your credit card balances where I'm paying that balance off every month, and I'm not spending more than I'm taking in, and I've got excess cash.
Okay. And then does this advice apply differently to different industries, or do different industries get hurt by a recession more, or they have a special caveat in what they need to do with their cash?
Well, yeah. So, like, we were in the metals business, and the metals market took a big downturn. Now, what can happen is they're leading indicators and lagging indicators, and so the metals sometimes are a leading indicator for other markets, like agriculture, for example. So, and I don't know that that's a fact. I'm just saying that's an example. So your industry might be going, like, if let's say you're in construction, okay, there was, all of those hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff blew everybody's roofs off. Roofing prices go sky high, roofing materials go sky high. There's a contraction in the economy, supply and demand, everything gets out of whack, okay? But the rest of the economy was fine. It was just construction went through this period of time. So, yeah, it can be definitely by industry. However, the classic definition of a recession is the overall gross domestic product goes down for 2 consecutive quarters. And I think that's a pretty good read on recessions.
Do you need to be looking at your competitors the entire, I mean, you should be doing this generally, but what should we be looking for with your competitors in terms of, can they help you know how to navigate the recession?
Well, honestly, AJ, you should always be looking at your competitors.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in the question, but
You should actually know what they're doing all the time. I brought up something that's important. And in a recession, so what a recession is it's an overall economic downturn. So it's like, in a boom, it's like the tide's rising, so all boats go up. And in a recession, the tide's going down. We're running out of money. They're short money. People have stopped spending, all that kind of thing. The tide's going down, all the boats go down. So everybody gets affected. The job market, there's all these things that start moving around. And what causes what? Always different. Okay. You keep hearing me say, keep the cash flow positive. And so last week I recommended go look at our dynamic budget video. And I'd continue to say that because you want to keep your cost, you want to cut your cost so that you're keeping profitability. Now, if your competitors, I'm going to loop back around. If your competitors are struggling, they're going to cut their prices. And if they cut their prices, that's going to affect your sales. It could affect your sales. And so what they're doing is they're just trying to stay afloat. Okay. And you've got to outlast them. It's a desperate move. Especially if they cut below what they can afford. They're losing money. The thing is that you want to keep that cash coming in, and you can lose profitability. So it's okay to give up profitability, but you've got to keep positive cash flow. And there's a whole lot to that, but that's the strategy.
Yeah, it's one of the best ways to keep and maintain positive cash flow is that looking for other income opportunities, like scanning the market to see where else you can find sources of cash.
Absolutely. And that's
given
exactly,
the downturn.
yes. And that's exactly what our strategy was with the shredder. So in other words, we knew if we could just get that shredder online, buy the gold-plated engines, okay, spend whatever it takes, was really the mentality. Whatever we could afford, spend it and get that thing online, because that was going to be an alternate source of cash. And I was running numbers. I knew this was going to be, it would solve our problems if I could get this thing, if we could get this thing operational.
Yeah, so it sounds like, to put it simply, to be ready for a recession, you need cash. Like, I mean, everything you've covered so far, like open credit lines and cutting unnecessary expenses and looking around your industry. But if you need cash, I imagine there's got to be a bunch of options. What other options are there out there besides what we've covered?
Right. Yeah. So guys, to keep keep you super focused, if you just focus on cash flow, you're going to not only weather recessions, you're going to grow well too. Like you just said, AJ, don't, go cut unnecessary expenses. Well, you shouldn't have had them in the beginning anyhow. You've heard me say, don't go spend $50 on office furniture. Don't spend any money on office furniture. Just buy something cheap, cardboard, whatever. You want to run it lean and mean. This is why in recessions there are layoffs. Hello, I have all these unnecessary people doing stuff that doesn't matter. All you got to watch are old episodes of The Office, Dunder Mifflin, the paper company, right? I mean, so here's the thing. You've got to get creative. And these are things that we should get into this, AJ, in another episode. Like, why are there recessions? Because what's going on is you've got people you don't need. So I'm laying them off. What did I have them for in the beginning? There are things that you can start practicing because you need cash. Let me give you an example. If you remember the commercial sales company that we helped start that had $0, we took them to $1.8 million net worth in 3 years. Great episode to watch. Okay. Here's the thing is we started taking deposits. It's not in the episode, by the way. One of our tricks was, so in that particular industry at that particular time, it was tradition. It was nobody paid deposits. I mean, nationally, on any level, it was commercial furniture sales. I was partnering with the world's greatest salesman, is what I would call him. And I go, look, if you can sell anything, you can sell deposits. Whoa, how much do we need? So we started off at 30%. We got 30%, and then we went to 50%. And he still does 50% today, by the way. And the industry came to him. I mean, then other people started getting deposits. He broke ground. We financed. That was one of the huge pieces to how we financed $12 million in sales with no credit. Now we only had to finance $6 million because we got 50% down. So deposits. The other thing is get rid of your receivables. That's another way. So we live in an age of people go online, they put their credit card in and they pay for it. You want it from Amazon? You're paying for it. I don't care what you're buying. $1, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it is, you pay for it. There's no receivables with Amazon. Now, I'm not saying don't have them have debt. I'm just saying for you not to have debt. So use that. Do not be a credit card company. Get rid of your receivables. Look on your balance sheet. What are all the sources of cash? Sell fixed assets that you don't need anymore. You go, well, George, we've got positive cash flow and things are good. Yeah, we don't know how long this is going to last. I'd rather have the cash in a money market earning a little bit of interest than in a whole room full of office furniture I don't need.
So it sounds like
long answer. Sorry.
I'm glad you did, because it was a great answer. And what you're really pulling out here is kind of the simple overarching message, which is be hyper focused on your cash and look at your business, look at the scenario you're in, and come up with creative strategies in order to generate more cash and improve your cash position so that you're ready to be prepared in a recessionary environment.
Yes, in recession, out of recession. Now, I got to talk about growth strategies. We do that in another time. We'll talk about upturns in another episode, I guess. But let me just tell you, so for those that are still listening, I'm going to give you the secret to all of this. And it is simple. If you just know this secret, it is so freaking simple. I've done turnarounds. I've done amazing turnarounds with companies that were in bankruptcy. They were in bankruptcy. So here's the thing is get cash flow positive first, and then start building profitability. You do that formula, you will make it through the recession. You will come out blowing and going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading all these articles and watching all these videos that are doom and gloom and all this madness and clickbait to get you to survive a recession. But it's really that simple.
It is. And the thing is that if you notice, the people who make money, the most money, is during a recession. Why? They're buying low. They're buying low. And they come out of the recession and they sell high. I got a great idea, HA. Let's get in. So you guys, let me just share more about recessions and how they work, because if you know what happens after a recession, it's going to blow your mind. So we'll do that. We're going to do that next. Go back and watch last week's episode, bone up on that, rewatch this one. And until next time, may you live truly free.